Star of Bengal may be located in a small Welsh village, but people, even the good folk from across the border in England, would flock to visit the restaurant, so high its reputation. A Tuesday evening did manage to be the best bet on getting a table without a reservation, and there were a few tables occupied this wet and stormy night. About halfway through service, the door swung open and in crashed an enormous man wearing a corkscrew bush hat. The man was clearly Australian and proved to be the most obnoxious person to ever have visited the place. He crudely yanked back a chair on a table of 8, removed his hat and slammed it onto the table. Shortly, a humble and extremely polite waiter arrived to tend to his customers' needs. The Australian demanded a tui's and the waiter responded with a shrug of his tiny shoulders. The Australian was unhappy that the remote village did not stock his preferred brand. He again asked for a beer, this time a Foster's, and when the waiter explained that they only have one local branded lager, the annoying Antipian flew into a rage, although not before he demanded the local brew from the waiter, who scurried away. "I'm sick and tired of this country." Country? Pah, principality, I think it's known as, and I'm not bloody surprised. I've been to Tallinn, Athens, Madrid, Paris, London, Bath, in fact everywhere during me tour of Europe, and now it ends with this shithole. The Australian continued his rant and the waiter quickly arrived, only to try and soothe the man's feelings with a nice cold beer. He paused, took a sip, and flew off on one again. "This tastes like piss. Christ, you lot can't even produce a proper amber nectar." The waiter intervened and asked what the aggressive customer would like to eat. The Aussie asked, "What's meat curry mean?" and the waiter replied that it was the most succulent chunks of locally produced lamb, and it is quite beautiful. "I'll be the judge of that, Abdul," sniped the tourist, who demanded, "Right, just make it hot as fuck. Stuff your vindaloos and tindaloos. I want chef to throw hands full of chili powder in it and cook the fucker right. I want it so hot that you have to be over 21 years of age to eat it. Right?" The waiter reluctantly obliged and replenished the man's beer many times before his meal arrived. He hadn't, however, finished his rant against Wales. "It's done nothing but piss down since I've been here. Sod all's open and I'm bored as fuck. I can't wait to catch me flight home tomorrow. Sheep shaggers. Be fucked." The waiter arrived with the man's order, a plate so sizzling hot that it almost blew a hole in the table. Without thanking the humble waiter, he threw the contents of a pepper condiment over the food and devoured it, ordering about 6 pints of lager in the process. In between his wolfish assault on his beautifully prepared meal, he continued his insults upon his surroundings. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a couple sat opposite sides of a table together. The two men were getting along very nicely, as this was their first date, and it was that which the Australian picked up upon very quickly indeed. "You two," said the Aussie to the couple, who responded with a polite smile before Ira interrupted them again. "Are you queer then?" There was nothing but an embarrassed response from the couple, but the annoying brute wouldn't give up. "Don't be shy, boys. We got queers back home, you know. Nothing like a nice fat hairy cock being shoved up your arse, eh?" The waiter returned with the bill, and the Aussie, to the waiter's surprise, claimed that his meal was quite superb. In fact, the best he had had anywhere in Europe. But he hadn't completed his abusiveness. Referring to the couple that he annoyed earlier, he called one of them out and informed him that he saw his partner out with a sheep last night, the night before. A true case of adultery, if he had ever heard of one. "Bloody sheep shaggers, the lot of you," screamed the Aussie as he made his way out of the Star of Bengal, with the young waiter escorting him out and thanked the visitor for his custom and for his kind comments about his meal. The Aussie could only concur his earlier comments and finally said to the waiter that it was by far the best curry they had ever eaten. "Not bad at all," confessed the Aussie, who just couldn't close that cynical mouth of his. He looked at the waiter and asked, "Can you tell me how it was made, sheepshagger?" "I'm afraid that I can't give you chef secrets, but if you kindly continue to eat them, sir, we'll continue to shag them." And with that, the Australian ran out of the restaurant, threw up outside, and for the rest of the night, before being taken to hospital and missing his flight back down under after visiting the most beautiful restaurant in the most beautiful village in the most beautiful country in Britain.